Welcome all. Welcome to this trusted space, this space of learning, growth, and all sorts of good things. I am John Michael Bailey, and welcome to the Wellspring Digital Chat, where we've invested a lot of money in technology. Through the dark web, we're able to access the brain synapses of our guests and really dive deep into all of their cranial knowledge base, pluck out what we need, and then they're on their way. And it really doesn't cost that much in crypto, but it's all good. It's all been approved. It's all legal-ish. Anyway, and don't worry, I warned Danny that I would be doing a goofy intro. So anyway, Danny Goodwin is one of those names that to me is synonymous with SEO. If you've read anything lately on search engine land and learned anything from it, it's safe to say that you have Danny to thank for that in one way or another. I know I thank you for it, Danny. So Danny, welcome. Please introduce yourself to these wonderful people.
Hi, John. Yeah, and I guess I take all the blame too if you didn't learn anything. So
there you go.
Yes. So yeah, Danny Goodwin. I am the managing editor for Search Engine Land and SMX, and I've been around since 2007. I started at a site called Search Engine Watch, which you've probably heard of, and then I was also at Search Engine Journal for a little while there as well. So yeah, I've basically hit all the what I call them the big three. So it's like, I don't know if there was some term for that. Is that like the Triple Crown or something, maybe?
Yeah, the holy triumvirate of search engine magazines. Yeah. So, there's probably all kinds of things we can come up with there. So you've as you said, you've been an editor at three of my go-to SEO resources, and now I finally get a chance to pick your brain. So
yes,
I know I'll learn something. And I know our viewer, I know I will, and I know our viewers will learn something. So no pressure. But you ready to break us off some knowledge?
I'll do my best.
All right, let's do this. So
yes,
unfortunately, we recently lost Bill Slawski, who is one of the most respected, still is, SEOs around. And it's hit the digital marketing community very hard. So I know you've written some posts honoring the legacy of Bill Slawski. Bill was an invaluable resource for SEOs and digital marketers, everywhere. So for anyone here who didn't know Bill, which would be shocking, do you mind sharing your thoughts on his impact to this industry?
Yeah. I was almost thinking, if we had our Mount Rushmore, like Bill would probably have to be there,
Absolutely.
When I came in, he was one of the places, way back when, 2007 or 8, when I started really reading a lot about SEO and learning, because that's when I did a lot of my work. And Bill was, his site, SEO by the Sea, was huge. It was, I just sort of think back to like how many people he influenced through that site and all the other sites that he contributed to, and Twitter. Like, he was so active on Twitter all the time. It's crazy to think about, but yeah, Bill was like, he's a legend, it's a huge loss. It's like, where do I go to for my patent knowledge, and where do I go next time? Is this a myth or not? Because Bill will tell you. But yeah, he was just such a nice guy too. I only had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times at conferences, but very soft-spoken guy, very generous with his time. Like, he was one of those people everybody wanted to meet when they went to a conference, and
it's very accessible too.
Yeah, very accessible.
I never met him in person, but I've had some interactions with him online. It's just an all-around great guy.
Yeah.
Not your your typical SEO who has some mean-spiritedness too.
Yeah.
He was an anomaly in that way, which is good. But he's So, of course, we still have some industry veterans carrying the SEO torch of people like David Harry, Roger Monti, Don Anderson, Eamon Johns.
Oh, sure.
But what about the new blood? Who do you have your eyes on, or is there anyone you're particularly paying attention to these days? I have some names in mind, and I'm curious what your answer will be. But yeah.
It's interesting because I came in at a time where it's like, for people who's starting now, I'm probably an old school person, but I still feel like I'm not old school enough for this industry.
You're the youngster. Yeah.
I'm still like, I came at like maybe the second wave of SEO,
right,
if you want to call it that. But there's a lot of really talented people out there. Man, obviously I think Lily Ray is probably one of the big people to emerge.
I had an absolute feeling you were going to mention her name for sure. Yeah,
she's amazing. I don't know if you consider her new, but Marie Haynes, she's been around for a decade, which in our industry is kind of new still. But I read her tweets are so informative, and she's so helpful. And we just had SMX with her. She did a great presentation on semantic search and EAT, and we did this bonus coffee. It was called a coffee talk. There were so many questions, and she's so eloquent, and she has a doctorate too. So it's like she takes a very academic approach, which is, again, it's sort of like Bill. It's very kind of like an academic, like, I want to do my research. Yeah. And very giving of her time. She does a lot of research and shares all her findings. So I'd put her up there. Man, there's a bunch of names, and I'd probably, I'll probably upset people if I don't mention them. So
I did kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah,
but those are two great names. And
I would say one other. I'll add one other one's Kevin Indig. I think was, I don't agree with everything he says, but I really kind of appreciate his approach to a lot of the things he discusses. I don't always agree with everything, but that's SEO. We're never all going to agree on everything. So,
how can we? Google doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And when they do, it's misleading. So yeah, it's tough. But there's a lot of great people out there. So, and I'm what's interesting too is I've become a lot more active on LinkedIn. I'm just starting to follow more people because there's a lot of more interesting discussions. And I feel like Twitter used to be the place to go for SEO discussions, but I think that's shifting to LinkedIn right now. So I'm starting to follow people and trying to sort of figure out who are the legit people versus here's an SEO secret that everybody's known for 20 years. So there's a lot of that too that you have to weed through. Because those annoy me. Well, it's funny because LinkedIn is like the dumpster fire level is like at smoldering, whereas Twitter and Facebook, it's like out of control.
So, dumpster fire.
It's a nice sort of rational business focused space for now. We'll see what happens. But
I mean, LinkedIn is not perfect by any stretch, but I have been enjoying just reading. Without a lot of the toxicity that you'll see on Twitter, where it's like, I have an opinion. Now let me tell you why it's wrong from everybody else in the world. So.
Exactly. So you recently wrote an article about Jamie Clark and her work migrating the Wirecutter over to New York Times. And there's one specific thing I want to kind of focus on here. You talk about how the Wirecutter had a mile wide, inch deep approach to their content that starting in 2018 with Jamie was transformed into a mile deep. I get what you're saying, and I believe this wholeheartedly, but I wonder if you can explain what this mile deep means and maybe elaborate a little bit on its importance.
It's super important. It's actually kind of funny. I just stumbled on an article I edited way back in probably 2010 that was basically saying the same thing.
Right.
And I don't know how I stumbled across it, but I did. And it's like you sort of realize a lot of the stuff that you think is new is really just a new face. And it's really the same thing. So it's sort of like if you go back to the pre-Panda days, there were a lot of content farms out there. The goal was just to rank for every conceivable term, monetize the heck out of it, and and rank and go to the bank. Rank and go to the bank. I like that. Okay. But you know, then Panda came along. A lot of people's business models, if you want to call them that, were wiped out. And that's really kind of the best way to explain it. It's like, you know, you can rank for all these terms, but I don't think Google's going to reward that in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can try and rank for everything under the sun, but what they really want to see is that you have depth. I like the term depth and breadth. So it's like, you know, it's not just, you know, her example was vacuums. So it's like you can have, you know, the best handheld vacuums, best, you know, push vacuums, like all the different types of vacuums that are. It's basically, you know, you want to think of all the possible user intents that would come to a broad topic and then provide that depth, you know, you know, which type of vacuum am I trying to buy? Is it a by brand or this or that? So yeah, it's very much just thinking about the user, all the possible questions and answering them and directing them to other resources on your own site. And just being very transparent about how you do things as well, I think is super important now. You know, because there is so much kind of pay to play stuff that happens, or, you know, people pay for reviews to say, hey, here's the top 5 whatever products, and like number 1 is sponsored, but they don't tell you that it's sponsored.
Right.
So yeah, it's very much just that, you know, just think about at the highest level, you want to rank for obviously the big terms, but once you get people there, you want to niche down, sort of, you know, just focus on, go long tail with your supporting content, link it all together, because internal linking is it's the thing, you know, that's sort of the secret. I've said that for years, and I know it's a secret, but you know, people don't do enough internal linking. You know, support your pillar pages, or whatever you want to call them, your money pages, while supporting content, and just go deep. You know, go into all the cases, do your keyword research, look for, you know, people also ask questions, answer all those questions, and just be the source. Whenever people are searching for whatever it is that you either sell, or, you know, if you're an informational site, give them the information they want, you know.
I think it kind of takes the guesswork. You know, it might on the surface seem like a lot more work, but to me, it seems, I feel like it would take the guesswork out of your content planning if you do that upfront sort of due diligence and research and planning, and really, you know, I love the idea of answer their questions. You know, there's the whole they ask, you answer, whatever it is, the Marcus Sheridan thing. But yeah, I think a mile deep is, to me, meant exactly what you're saying, which is, you know, get to their needs in a deep and meaningful and thoughtful way.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, if you think about, there's always this talk about Generation Z or millennials or Gen X. So it's like it's just like a homogenous blob. Like you can't, all the people in that generation are not the same. And you know, it's the same thing with a broad topic like that. Like not everybody who comes looking for information on a vacuum is looking for the same vacuum or the same brand. You know, it's like you have to think about, you know, everybody is an individual, but they have shared interests, and it's just a case of pointing them in that interest so that they buy from you or get the information from you and look to you next time they need a thing on something else. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I think it's the, you know, any marketing department that is sort of starting fresh is like, there's where you begin. Yeah, that's your marching order. So, you know, to continue with content, you wrote a piece about Google's assessment of good content as being, and this was specific to video content, but you know, content that is relevant, intellectual, sensorial, and emotional. I don't know where they come up with their adjectives sometimes.
I don't know.
So with this, you know, do you see any correlations between this and Google EAT and the importance of content for SEO efforts?
I mean, not necessarily for EAT. Potentially, yes, but I think it's more just kind of, it's kind of like EAT. It's just a way of thinking about content. It's not like checklist item. You know, it's just, I think it's more like the user intent. It's like, are you fulfilling what you promised? That's what that's sort of my personal benchmark. You know, does the thing that makes them click on your article, do you deliver on it or not? You know, are you teaching them something new? Are you informing them? Are you entertaining them? You know, whatever your sort of end goal is there, that's the key. That's not really like an EAT necessarily. It's more just kind of a user experience, or I guess user experience is the right word for that. Just did they enjoy your content? Did they learn from it? Was your content helpful? Or was it just there? Because there's just so many things that get published every day. I'm sure there's some crazy stat about it, but a lot of people just push out the content really fast. They don't really think about quality. It doesn't do anything. Then they go, why doesn't my SEO work? Why doesn't my content strategy work? It's because you're not doing quality work. So, and even if you are doing quality work, I've found this so often. It's like the stuff you're doing today may not pay off for 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 18 months. But when it starts to, that's when the magic starts happening. It's not like, it's not paid search. So you're not going to get that instant thing. It's like you're building the audience, and that takes time,
I mean, what would be your advice to a marketing director trying to sell that to a boss that has zero patience and is always focused on the bottom line? I mean, is it even possible, or how do you frame that so they go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I luckily don't have to sell that, but the thing is, it's just like, I've just seen it so often that the growth comes, and when it comes, it's just big. And it's not it's like extra, the famous metaphor is exercise. You can go to the gym every day. You may not see the results right now, but if you keep at it, you're going to find that it's, you have more breath and you can lift stuff more easily, like all those things. And then if you stop, it goes away. So it's just basically that, if you don't, there was a great quote from Keith Good. I put in one of our newsletters. He had shared it on Twitter. It's like, you can pay for it now, or you can pay later, and you're going to pay more later. I think it was like some reference to a old Midas ad from the 80s.
Right.
So that one too for me. But yeah, it's just like pay now or pay later. If you want to be competitive, you have to start doing this stuff. Unless you want to just dump a whole lot of money into paid search and other stuff, which I don't think a lot of people have the budget for, especially right now. It seems pretty insane prices for Google Ads and the like. So,
do you think the kind of content we're talking about has a longer shelf life and can produce for a longer period of time? And I mean, it seems like it would to me.
It can. The key part, and that this will sort of tie more into EAT, is you have to keep that content updated. If things change, you want to make sure that you change your content, especially if there's like something specific to your industry. Like if you're in healthcare and there's some new law that comes out, you're going to need to update a bunch of content on your website. Whatever the case may be, you have to really watch the news. If things change, update fast, as fast as you can. Maybe even. I found that, a good thing to do is you can get a list together of maybe you pick your highest traffic pages, just keep track of them, go, okay, this is a page that needs to be updated or at least checked every quarter, every 6 months, every year, whatever the case may be. Again, it'll all depend on your industry. It depends. But yeah, just like I would just definitely make sure you're keeping track of content, especially around core updates too. Make sure if you see any of those key pages start to drop in traffic or rankings, update them. Because I've seen that I'll call it a correlation, but a lot of older content tends to get hit around core updates. Because Google obviously wants to put out wants to feature the most up-to-date information in its search results. It doesn't always, but that's the goal. So,
I mean, it seems like the whole, the underlying theme of all of this is that trust is a huge part of user experience.
Yes.
And that goes for content, SEO, design, on and on. But, if you're maintaining quality content that is helpful, you're also maintaining trust, which I don't know how Google would even, sort of track that, but it seems like they're trying maybe.
Yeah. I think, links are probably part of it. If you get coverage from a relevant authoritative site, that's always a good thing for a trust signal. I don't know what all of them are, obviously, but yeah, I'm sure at this point they have a way to do it. It was interesting too, if you go back to Jamie's keynote. I know that EAT is much more than author bios, but it was interesting how they were thinking about it. It's like In your author bios, you want to say who this person is, how many years of experience they have writing about this specific topic that they're covering, any relevant awards and whatnot. So, all those little things matter. And it's like, too, like, what am I going to trust more, though? A bylined piece or a piece by, like, admin, which I still see, like, every once in a while, something ranking by admin with no picture and no information. Right. Like, how does this still rank in 2022? I don't know.
Man, that admin is a great writer. Let me tell you.
He's everywhere, or she. Everywhere. I don't know.
Yeah, he or she. They're just, they're just crushing it.
Prolific, very prolific.
So, one of the biggest frustrations I think a lot of SEOs and marketers have is that Google keeps asking us for the kind of content that we've been talking about.
Yes.
But then rewards thin AI generated content with favorable rankings. So, this is a hard question probably for anybody to answer, but when will good content completely junk the thin content, or will it? In other words, are we doomed?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Like, obviously Google's been around for 2 decades at this point, and it's still a problem. So let's say at least 2 more decades. Maybe they'll figure it out by then if they're still around and they haven't been broken up by the government at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, if we go back to Bill Slawski, like, I did an article on how there was all this obituary spam. Like, I was searching, I wanted to see if there was an obituary, an official one for Bill. And I found all these awful websites that are just like spinning content about his death and like stealing. Like, they were obviously spinning content through AI from stuff that we had published on Search Engine Land, and I think from Search Engine Roundtable too. And they were just sort of like spitting out all this garbage. I'm like, how is this ranking? I tweeted at Danny Sullivan. I even reached out to Google. Nothing's gotten changed. So I don't know. I guess it can still work in certain verticals. And it may always, unfortunately, unless it's, and I hate to say it, unless like Google has a financial stake in like investing the resources into doing that. Or it could just be, they have an enormous queue. I don't know how long their queue is of things they need to fix on search. I would imagine it's fairly long at this point because, I don't remember what the example was, but there was something that just got fixed. Oh, it was Chris Silversmith had just recently published an article on our site about how that old hack for like adding near me to your names. Like, they finally fixed that problem for the most part in local search. And he was noting like he had brought that up to Google 2 years ago and they've just fixed it now. So, maybe they'll fix the obit spam issue in 2 years. I'll hope, but yeah, it's just, there's always going to be junk out there. And then there's always going to be tricks to make it rank until Google catches it. It's just this endless game of cat and mouse. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to hope for 2 decades from now. That'll be my hope.
What? Yeah. What would you say to, a marketing director or a VP of marketing or CMO or whatever, who's going, all this AI generated thin content, some of it's ranking, why do we need to bother creating good content? When we can get the rankings we want with this quick, crap, what would you say to them? How would you argue to them that they need to still fight the good fight?
I would say that, I would take a minute to think about, but it's really just, whenever I come across that stuff, I'm angry. And, I've always had this sort of personal thing where it's like, if I land on any page that I've published, would I be happy with it as a searcher? Like, that's sort of my personal bar. I want to make sure that if I'm getting people in there, that they're happy, and that they get the answer to the question they wanted. That stuff does not do that. I've looked at tons of tools, not personally, but, I've just explored them a little bit. And the stuff that they pump out is not quality. And I wouldn't trust, if you're trying to sell stuff to me, I would not trust that stuff.
I think it comes back to user experience.
Yeah, it really does.
Through the user experience.
Yeah. So it's like, you can do it. And I would even say I'm fine with that as kind of a first draft, but you need to have a human reviewing it. And the other thing too, you need to think about, I don't know, I may be stealing this from someone else, and if I am, sorry, but it's like, if you're basically just relying on an AI tool to go out and regurgitate stuff from other websites, you're not showcasing who you are as a company or brand or individual. And that's ultimately a losing strategy. It's, what's your take? What makes you experience in this area? Why should I trust you? That's what I want to know. So, and that's a hard question to answer.
No, I think you answered it perfectly. And I think we can sum up kind of the whole theme of this talk here with the word trust. I think that's what we're generally, whether it's, someone like Bill who can, who was just such a trusted resource to, building trust within your own organization. So, yeah, that's great.
Yes. I love it when a theme emerges.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to come up.
We planned that totally.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. It's in my notes. So
yes.
well, Danny, thank you so much. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I can't wait to share it. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. See you, everybody.